Now, if I were to take a look at here, right, another good website to look into is also CoinGecko.com. Up here on the top right hand corner, there's something called Gwei, right? The lower this number, the cheaper it is for you to unstake and do anything on Ethereum. Typically, during a bull market, the Gwei is over. It's usually about between 100 to 140 Gwei on kind of a normal day. So right now, I mean, obviously, we're at somewhere between a 5 to 6x lower in gas fees than we should pay. So that means when HEX when this bull market really gets revved up and the Gwei is just long term around 140, 130, 120 Gwei. The cost to unstake a HEX stake right now is probably going to be about $300 to $400 for a HEX stake that's over 3 years old. And well, Miguel, why does this matter? Well, because what ends up happening is as the Gwei price gets higher and higher, and your HEX stakes get older and older over time, you end up running into this problem where your stakes didn't generate enough interest, where you're actually eating into principal. And for some people who don't know what they're doing and they end up staking a very small amount of HEX, it's not worth to unstake the HEX. So basically, it will cost you more to get your money back than it would be to just leave it there and let it die. That's correct. Now, Black Label Expect had a really great comment. It's really good to be able to put these comments up here, you guys. But HEX can't be changed, but the OA is kind of a rudder. Exactly. So the OA is the origin address. So basically, it is the big whale in the HEX space. Some speculate that it could be a man somewhere in Europe, but who knows? But basically, what the OA does is something very special. So HEX is an inflationary cryptocurrency. Bum, bum, bum. HEX is an inflationary cryptocurrency. So what that means is every year there will be a little bit more HEX than there was last year. Okay. So what's the inflation rate? 3.69. So it's basically 3.5%, give or take, per year, which actually is not really a lot of inflation. Right now in the United States with the CPI where it's at right now, we're somewhere between 6% CPI. So, I mean, you could just double it. I mean, at best case, we're probably at 15% year-on-year inflation for the United States dollar. So we're not doing too shabby over here in the United States of HEX. But here's an interesting thing. So if we go back to what HEX is, right? HEX is Bitcoin with staking, built on Ethereum. So the people who decide to stake their HEX get the inflation rewards of the people who don't stake. So if you decide not to stake your HEX, you will be inflated every year about 3 to 4% per year. And you're like, oh no, how do I avoid that? Let me stake. If you decide to stake your HEX, you will then get a cut of the reward of HEX. So, but here's what happens is just like voting, not everyone votes, not everyone stakes, right? So what happens is that 369% inflation gets split amongst the people who decide to stake their HEX. So you are getting incentivized to stake your HEX for a future time, and for that you were allowing. So in a way, by you staking, you are essentially promising you are not selling your HEX. That is the promise of staking. And the reason most people there's yield pools, there's staking, there's lock staking, there's vesting tokens, is because essentially the project leaders and the people within the project itself or large holders, they want to put incentives in place in order for people to have a good portion of their coins staked out in order for them not to sell down the price to hurt the price, right? Typically, the more true believers you have of a project, as well as if you add the ability to actually have the ability to lock your coins for a decent amount of time, it tends to lead over time to a very high appreciation in the token price. Because if a large segment of the population of that coin is not selling the token, is keeping it, and can diamond hands it, or at the very least stake it in order to diamond hands it at that point, you can really get some really crazy prices in the price of that token. That's correct, you guys. Belly Blanco. So HEX, it has basically the longest staking in all of crypto. There is no cryptocurrency with more of a community that will stake for the long term. you can, which I can show you guys in a minute and stuff like once I get the stats and stuff in front of me. But here, let me get it for you. It's still loading. Okay. There we go. Cool. So this is another website called apphex.win. I will also link it. Actually, let me link it for you guys right now, just so you guys to have this. This is a great website for a lot of you guys. It's a website that I use a lot of times in order to actually see T-shares as well. See T-shares and when there's a decent time to actually invest. And then there's another great website called hexnoob.com. There's a lot of great links in here in order to help you out in tips and tricks and tools and stuff. Hex Vision, hex.info, hex graphs and stuff. Look into hex and stuff, and a bunch of these other sort of really useful sort of things. There you go. Now, let me just see so I can get the math right on this right now. Right now, the average staker in Hex, right? The average stake length. So if the average, like if you were just take a snapshot of the average person that stakes inside of Hex, because there's not everyone in Hex stakes, but some people hyper stake and other people's under stake. So you have kind of like once you kind of add these two kind of in the middle to see kind of where everyone's at. Basically, you're getting a kind of a duration of about 7 to 7.5 years per staker. So this is why this is so significant. So there's two things you're getting incentivized with, right? Community, yield, and token price appreciation over time. So these are some of the three facts, maybe in 4 facts and stuff later on as I keep it going, over why people want to stake their hex, why they don't, and the 4th would probably be gas fees is one of the reasons why people don't, and why there's been some developments in this token ecosystem and why it's expanding out to its own L1, which is Pulse Chain. Now, let me take this one down. Now, with the OA, right? Now you'll say, right, 7 years, that's a pretty good amount of time, but like, yeah, it's not crazy, right? But you have to look at it in terms of the average sort of stake length in the rest of crypto. In most of crypto, the longest you can stake your tokens for the most part is somewhere between 2 to 4 years. That is the absolute longest. Now that's somewhere that the average token that staking is usually about 1 year, maybe 2 years at most. Most staking something like even like Illuvium, right? You're doing something like Illuvium mixed in with Ethereum and an LP, and you stake it together. That is a 1 year lockup time, and for some people that is like too much. So you can kind of imagine that if most projects are averaging about a one token is like an averaging about a 1 year lockup at maximum, maybe 2 years of vesting, that it puts Hex in a really pretty powerful position where the average person in the system who believes in Hex is in it for 7 years, 2.5 to 3 times longer than the second best average.